All right, so let's go over your do now and fluency practice for today. So once again, we're looking at another bar graph. And today it says Manatee Middle School surveyed students to ask their favorite subject in school. The results of the survey are shown below. Okay, so we can see every subject in school has its own color and its own bar. And once again, so the x-axis represents the subjects, and the y-axis up and down is the number of students that said it was their favorite. So social studies, if we go up, ends at 30. So 30 students said that was their favorite. Math, 50. Science, 30 again. 35 and 10. So how many students chose science? 30, because it ends at the 30 on the y-axis. How many more students chose math than ELA? So how many more? Means we're looking for the difference between the two. So math was 50 and ELA was 35, so we would subtract those two votes, and we would see that 15 more students chose math than ELA. And now, which of these shows the ratio of students who chose social studies to students who chose math? So we had to set up a ratio. Here is social studies. Here is math, and we have a 30 to 50 ratio. That's not one of our options, so we had to simplify. If we divided both sides by 10, we would get an equivalent ratio of 3 to 5. And once again, B looks similar, but in ratios, order does matter, so 3 to 5 would have to be the correct answer because the ratio is social studies to math. Middle row, we've got our division. Once again, first problem is always easy. It's just whole numbers. 4 fits into 27 6 times. And so 6 fours, 4 times 6 would be 24. We subtract and get 3. Every time after we subtract in long division, you bring down the next number. And 4 fits into 32 8 times, which would be 32. And we subtract. We've got 0, so we know we're done. Number 5, it's similar to yesterday. Once again, we don't mind if our dividend has a decimal, but we do not like when the divisor, the number that does the dividing, has a decimal. So to fix that, you can multiply by a base 10 number to turn it into a whole number. So here, we just need to move that decimal place over 1, so we only need a base 10 number with 1 0, which is 10. If you multiply one number by 10, you need to multiply the other number by 10, just like when we're working with ratios, to keep things equivalent or the same. So 27 and 2/10 divided by 4 is the same thing as 2 and 72/100 divided by 4/10. Now I can do my long division, same numbers as before. However, we need to make sure to just include our decimal. Once you bring down a value that's behind the decimal, put your decimal in your quotient. And so here, once again, we had to make our divisor a whole number. This time we had to move the decimal over 2 places to turn it into a whole number. So we multiplied by a base 10 number, 100, with 2 zeros to move it over those 2 places. And 2,720 divided by 4 is 680. Down below, we have scientists who are counting the different types of salmon. We've got Chinook salmon and steelhead salmon. What is the ratio of Chinook to steelhead? So the simplest ratio provided by the table would be 4 to 10. If we wanted to put that in lowest terms, both of these could be divided by 5 to get a simplified ratio of 2 to 5. Now here, they want us to scale up. So if the ratio of Chinook to steelhead remains constant, how many steelhead salmon are caught when 16 Chinook were caught? So 4 Chinook to 10 steelhead. I'm changing that to 16 Chinook though. So to get from 4 to 16, I'd have to quadruple or multiply that 4 by 4 to get to 16. If I do that if the Chinook multiplies by 4, then so must the steelhead, and that would mean there were 40 steelhead caught if there were 16 Chinook caught, is what that ratio shows. And once again, I know you can't graph on Wiser.me, but I just graphed, so if you want to look over this, Chinook is the x-axis, left and right. Steelhead is the y-axis. So when there were 4 Chinook, there were 10 steelhead. So over 4 up 10. When there were 12 Chinook, there were 30 steelhead. So 12 on the X, and then up 30. When there were 16 Chinook, there were 40 steelhead, so right 16, and then up to the 40. And then I also just kind of filled in some extra ones as well, because I knew that if there were 4 Chinook and 10 steelhead, then 8 Chinook, 20 steelhead, using my kind of ratio knowledge there to graph a few extra points. Okay. Now, for your fluency practice, this was all distributive property problems. So once again, the distributive property, I wrote the definition up above. That means that you multiply the number on the outside of the parentheses by each term inside the parentheses. And the reason why I'm using the word term instead of number is because 11W, like a number with a variable attached to it, that we just refer to as a term, okay? Because it's a number and a variable. So 8 needs to multiply times 11W, 88W, and then 8 also needs to multiply by 4, 32. Because remember, when you multiply a number with a variable, the variable stays attached. 3 times 11t is 33t. 3 times 9 is 27. 9 times 6b is 54b. 9 times a is 9a. So you'll just notice throughout that the numbers that had variables before will keep their same variable. And then the coefficients, the numbers in front, get multiplied. And so why is the answer to number 1 not 88W plus 4? The reason is because the distributive property states that the term on the outside multiplies by every term on the inside of the parentheses. So if that was the answer you got, then you had forgotten to multiply 8 by 4.